Everybody, welcome to another Sean Petit Creative Team post. My name is Carissa and I am going to be creating this art journal page today using some of my favorite products, including Sean Petit stencils. I started on the background. I created already collaged down some vintage ledger paper, sealed that with gel medium, and added a thin layer of gesso. Next, I knew I wanted to use this stencil faces one looking down, and I decided to use the large face that is on this stencil. I am taking my Stabilo Marks All pencil in black and just basically tracing in that stencil. And now I'm going to go in and fill any of those gaps from the stencil. I'm going to fill that in with that same pencil. And then I'm going to try and figure out where I want to lay out the flowers from the roses and peonies stencil. I decided I wanted to create kind of like a crown of flowers on her head. And so I was kind of eyeballing and seeing where I wanted to do that and how I wanted to do the rest of the hair. So while I'm thinking about that, I figured I'd go ahead and block in her face with some paint. I'm using a combination of Golden's Titan Buff along with Dina Wakley Heavy Body Medium in, oh, what is that color? It is my favorite. Okay, it's Blushing. So mixing those two colors together creates a really creamy skin tone. Then I add some more of just the straight Titan Buff to give a little bit more highlight and dimension to the face. The Stabilo Marks All pencil is a water-soluble medium, so I am taking care where I am placing the paint so as not to create too much gray area, I guess. But I don't mind if I pick up some of it because it does create some shadows. So you can see I'm taking my angle brush very gently, delicately around the eyelashes just to smooth that out a little bit, make sure it's all kind of blocked in. I left the lips and the eyebrows without paint for now. I'll come in later and fill those in. So for the hair, I decided I'm going to have that crown of flowers on top of her head, and I decided to just give her some flowy hair, kind of cascading off the page. She could be standing and her hair flowing in the wind, or just laying there and her hair kind of cascading around her. I don't know, it's just an easy way. Hair is super difficult for me to paint and draw, and so this style pretty much is my go-to because it seems to be the simplest way to just create some hair around the image. So here I am, I'm matching her eyebrows using that same combination of Heather and Night from Dina Wakley Media, and I'm just kind of creating the highlights and textures with both of those paints, picking them up, not cleaning my brush in between, and just creating a lot of texture in her hair. You can see I didn't go all the way down because I did want to leave some space for the stenciling that I'm going to do with the flowers. Taking that Night and adding just a bit of more strand texture to the hair. And now I'm ready to stencil in, block out the areas where I want the foliage. I have seen Sean Petit do this technique and it has been on my mind to try it for a while, and I finally decided that I wanted to do that. The Roses and Peonies stencil is one of my favorites, and it was so easy to do. Like, if you have not tried this, or if this is something that you wanted to do, you wanted to create bouquets or flowers in the hair or anything like that, this technique is just so perfect for that. So what I did was I took some gesso and I'm just using a makeup sponge and pouncing that through the stencil to kind of block off where I want those and to see if that is exactly the placement that I want. Since I'm using the gesso, I'm not like super committed at this point. I could always cover it up with more paint if I didn't like that, but I was pretty much happy. Then I decided I was going to try to paint in that with my angle brush. I didn't really care for that, so I decided to pull the stencil back out and just go over those areas where I had the gesso. Now, I'm not lining the stencil up perfectly, and it doesn't have to be perfect because in the end, I'm going to come in and create a lot of dimension with deeper colors and lighter colors, and you know, really kind of make those flowers my own. This is just to give me the guide to where I want those flowers to be. It's guiding me as far as the shape of the flowers that I want to use. I can overlap at this point. I do use my heat tool in between, you can see here, just to dry those layers before I come in with the stencil and a new color, or if I'm layering on top of that. So I am using a variety of colors from Dina Wakley Media. Ruby is my red. A combination of cheddar and blushing is like that golden yellow color. And then turquoise and peacock is that teal color. I also use evergreen mixed with a bit of the peacock and perhaps some of the night. Whatever is actually laying on my mat is what I'm picking up. And so I'm just going in and blocking out the leaves now where I want them. It's kind of difficult. I couldn't really tell which leaf shape I had originally used, but it pretty much works itself out. Even if I didn't use the exact same stencil for this part, it's really, I'm coming in and shaping it out even more with my paintbrush. I like the angle brush for this. It just gives me a little bit more control. I can use the very tip to get some details in, and I can use the broader end to get some more, shape to the flowers. I'm using a bit of that night in the middle of these little peonies. And I don't really rinse off my brush, but you will see I have a baby wipe off to the side. I do wipe off my brush if I'm changing colors. Here I brought in a bit of magenta for the red. I just wanted to give it a little bit of a highlight, a little bit more dimension with that kind of color family, and the magenta really did the trick there. And I will do the same thing with that turquoise. I will bring in, that's when I'll bring in the peacock and just darken it up a bit. For the white and the highlights, I'm just using gesso. I have white acrylic paint, but gesso is easily in reach whenever I'm creating. So generally I will use just plain gesso to do any of my highlights. Here is the peacock color, and I'm just giving some depth to those blue flowers. And you can see that now it doesn't look like a stencil anymore. Those flowers, I have created more depth, I have created more dimension, I have, my own brush strokes on there, so it looks like I painted those. But in reality, I used my stencil as a guide and then turn them into my own thing, which just made this page so very simple to create. I do believe I added my green to a bit of that night just to give it, some more depth. I felt like the green was too bright. I wanted to darken it, deepen it up a little bit, and then add some highlights to the different areas. And then I'm just filling in. I felt like it needed a little bit more leaf foliage here and there, and you can see I'm not pulling out the stencil at this point. I can just use the brush because as I filled in the stencil, I figured out how my brush moved to create those shapes, and I just made my brush move that same way and created additional leaves around the crown. Super happy with how that turned out. I just think it's such a cool technique to turn a stencil into something of your own. So now that that is all dry, I'm going to go again and add more details with my Stabilo Marxall and just bring in those lashes again, add a little bit more detail to her nose, a little bit more detail to her lips. And then what I will do is I'll go around all of the flowers with the Stabilo as well to make those pop and give a little bit of shading around them. So right now they look a little flat. So I've gone around all of the shapes of the flowers. Now I'm taking a water brush and activating that so it kind of feathers out, softens up those lines a little bit, and gives it, you can see how just adding that little bit of shading around really makes those flowers pop off the page. They don't look so flat. That gives them a little bit of dimensions and makes them stand out a little bit more. Also filling in the areas where there wasn't any flowers, kind of felt like a little empty space, just adding that Stabilo right there. So here, the one thing I do like about using the Stabilo is that I can easily wipe it off if I get too much going, or if I get it in an area I don't like. I just take a baby wipe and it wipes right off clean off of the paint or gel medium or anything like that. So now I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to her face, but I didn't want to use any more acrylic paint. So I'm coming in with a mermaid marker by Jane Davenport. These are water pens. Basically they're filled with ink that is like watercolor, and I can use these to add more color and shading and cheeks and the lips to my girl's face. And now I am deepening up, you know, those where I stenciled in her face. I am now coming in with a permanent pen and you know, just creating more definition on her eyelashes, her eyebrow, adding this little heart from the Valentine's Day Hearts and Arrows stencil. So cute. Now I'm just adding my little sentiment to my page, which says she was herself again. And that just kind of, that's where I feel like I am. I'm myself again. I'm back to creating. I had a long hiatus with computer issues and not being able to film and edit and moving and packing and all of that. And I am so grateful to be on a team that worked with me through that and stuck with me and gave me grace, because that's what we need sometimes. And this page just reflects that. So here's a close-up. I love all the texture of these flowers. I just think they look very painterly, abstract. I love the face. If you are nervous about making faces, or you know, don't feel like you have the skill to make your own faces, pick up some of these stencils and use them as your guide to create these beautiful girls on your art journal pages. It makes it so simple, and I absolutely loved using it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks along the way. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. You can find me on my own YouTube channel at Inky Fairy Designs if you want to see more tutorials than the once every couple of months here on Sean Petite. But until next time, guys, thanks again for watching. Do something that makes you happy today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.